One.
Action.
Hi, and welcome back to the Fried Eggs podcast.
Oh my
Amy
God.
has so much to share because
Oh my
she
God.
was just 15 minutes late to our recording session. Because why, Amy?
Well, I just, had to pick up the phone with the billing department because oh my God. And it was just like so par for the course of what we were talking about last week. Was it
hmm
last week's episode?
Was it last week? Yeah.
Where you were like, don't try to do this in between things. And I'm like, sure, I can do this in the half hour I have between things.
Of
And I had
course.
to ask the lady to call me back. And she did. But I got hit with a credit card processing fee
Wait, so
that I
this is
didn't
not
know.
this is not like healthcare, IVF, anything related. This is just like your
No, it
bank.
is. It's clinic. No, it's my
Oh,
clinic
okay. Okay.
charging me a surrogate screening fee.
Okay.
Like they called me and then were like, "Is this the right credit card still?" And I was like, "Yes, approved or whatever." And then I look back at the bill and I'm like, "Why is this so much more higher?" Because it's like a 3% fee
For using your
for using my credit card, and I was like, this is so stupid. Like I would have just brought a check, you know? And so anyway, first we had to like go through the way that they kind of broke up the payments made it very hard to reconcile what I was paying. And this is the third screening we've done. So like this is the third payment we've done, third payment for medical record review, third screening. Um, and the way that it was like broken up was hard to reconcile. So it looked to me just from like the receipts of what I had paid, like the
Mhm.
fee had doubled in the last year. And I was like, that seems wrong. So that was the impetus for calling her or calling the clinic. And then, of course, like back and forth, back and forth. So it worked out. She was very, like you mentioned this, and like it's totally true. Like she was so lovely to talk about, like to talk through it with. I feel really bad that they probably get a lot of these types of like nitpicky calls, but it's, to someone who's spending tens of
That much
thousands
money.
of
Mhm.
dollars out of your own pocket at any given time, it's like $100 actually matters, you know?
Yeah, of course it
It
does.
actually, like, does matter. So I was like, I'd like to I was like, "I'm sorry." I think I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to, like, push on this, but I'm pretty disappointed that I wasn't informed about this
Yeah.
processing fee." And the problem okay, pro tip for anybody else, the problem is, like, she was kinda like, "Yeah, this is what the credit card companies or the processing co" I forget how she put it, "The processing companies charge you." I was like, "No,
Okay.
not really. It's actually you get charged that and you're passing the fee
That
to
off
me."
to the yeah.
So that's
Mhm.
a choice that that the clinic administration is making, which also means it's negotiable. So I'm
Mhm.
being a jerk and I kind of fully owned it with her, and I think we were in good spirits about it, and she was like, "Oh, I understand. I'll like bring it to my manager and see, if we can issue a credit or what we can do for your next payment." So it was very
Yeah.
kind of her, but it is true, like, that's a choice that the admin team is making, and
That's a choice, and I'm having déjà vu because I feel like we've had this conversation before about either my experience or your experience. Like, we've had this conversation about a clinic wanting a check as opposed to
oh,
a credit card or, like,
yeah.
having that processing fee, and one, it's just like lump it in to the
Why
like just
yeah.
why does it need to be an addition? Because you know that probably 99% of people are going to be paying with a credit card if
Yeah,
they're, for the
yeah.
services. And so why would you not just like lump that in as part of the cost to save that sort
Well,
of
I think that they
and then
do
like give a discount
oh,
if
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like how like
Yeah,
cash
I
pay
see what
or
you're saying. It should be the standard should be the higher rate, and then it's like, "Here's a 10% discount for cash
if you
pay."
pay
And you're
exactly.
like, "Sweet, I can come up with that." But instead, the other way around, you feel like you're just being nickel and dimed, and being
Yes.
nickel and dimed over 3 years and multiple cycles and procedures and now screenings is like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
really irks me." So,
Yeah.
that's why I was late because I was having a heart to heart with the billing gals.
Yes.
But I have another funny thing to start us off with,
Do it.
and I feel like it's a little related to the topic we wanted to cover today. So I'll just like throw it
Great.
out there first. So I got a text from a friend this week who is newly pregnant with an IVF baby. Still waiting. It's still early. You don't know her.
Okay.
She's a different,
I'm
a
like,
different
"Who?
circle. You're
Tell
like
me."
who? And I'm not gonna out her, of course.
Yeah.
But it was so funny what ensued. Like she sent me, we've been in touch about both of our experiences, and we have like a cute little text thread going. But she sent me this, the info or the news, and we were talking about that we're very tentatively excited, and we were talking about like holding out the space for joy and hope, and that it's precious. But then it was so she goes, we're tentatively very excited, and I said, as you should be. If you're feeling joy, live in the joy. I feel like I should light a candle or something. I want to take vigil over this incredible news, because that's how I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Like you're so
It
protective of this little
Yes. Yeah.
news. And she goes, "Oh, thank you, as long as it's fragrance free." And then I said, she goes, "We went fragrance free several weeks ago." And I literally was like, "Girl, I laughed out loud. I have forced my household to be fragrance free for like 3 years. My husband is still annoyed about it. I swear he's going to come home with some dryer sheets one day and do his laundry behind my back." I was just like, this is so funny. And she goes, her husband's mostly mad about the deodorant."
Oh my gosh. No. Sorry. I draw the line. I draw the
The
line at the
deodorant?
deodorant. Yeah.
Well, I have totally gone down the I test like the deodorant situation. I'm like, lemon under the
No,
armpits. What?
no, I didn't know this.
Yeah, yeah. Cause I
Wait,
like
like an actual lemon?
like an actual lemon. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is so TMI, but like, I feel like the smells change throughout the cycle. And then if I'm on any kind of hormones, they also like can
Yes.
get gnarly or can be
Mhm.
non-existent. It's weird. Um, but I've tried a lot of things. So I have also like really bad skin allergies, as you know, to like
Mhm.
fragrance and in general. So I cut it out earlier for those reasons. Which means my like options for deodorant are very limited. Unless you wanna
Have
use, like, one of those
you
natural ones, but those don't really work that well, so
well, the one that I use, it is fragranced, but it's the, Necessaire, I think is how you pronounce
mm,
it.
I don't
I'll
know
have
it.
to
Send it.
yeah, I really like it. It's their rosemary one, and I feel like of all of the semi-natural clean brands, it's the only one that actually
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have one from actually, it's a friend's sister started this company. I think they're in Sprouts and Whole Foods now, and probably a variety of other places. It's called Hume,
Uh-huh.
Hume. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I actually really like their unscented one. That one's pretty good. Um, but I think all this stuff, if it's like the unscented or more natural ones, they just don't last very long. So I have to, be
Right.
mindful
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Exact
how much I'm pushing it.
reapplying and yeah.
Or like a
Yes.
little midday sink shower situation. But I have a girlfriend to wrap that. I have a girlfriend up in the Bay. If she listens, she'll know exactly that I'm talking about her. And we used to live together, and she would use lemons. She'd use a lemon, squeeze it in her water, and then use the leftover on her
Okay.
armpits. And it's like a natural antibacterial or
Because of the acidity or something?
something like that. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
not looked into it.
Okay.
And so and then you don't have to like throw it away because it has multiple uses, really. So she'd get like a little jar and put them in the jar and then put it in the fridge. And
Oh
if you weren't
gosh.
careful, you would accidentally wonder, did the lemon I just used on her armpits or not? And now I've adopted that. And so Nima's always mad at me because like there'll be like
Oh,
a
I
little
can
jar. And
of
so
lemons.
I
Yeah.
have to I throw them away because he's like, this is disgusting.
This would be a good use, for your sad lemons from your lemon tree
My
outside, the sad
sad lemons. Hopefully they're
Amy has
not
sad
sad for much
lemons.
longer. Wait,
No,
do
I think
I?
I thought they looked great, but Gardener Nema said that they are not good lemons.
he's such a harsh critic of
He
like,
is.
all of as in, like,
All
the 5 lemons that we have.
yeah. These are not good.
These are not good. But yeah,
Well, speaking of sweat,
speaking of funny things, with your partner, do you
yeah,
bodily odor?
I I paused for a second because 'cause I'm like, "Can I say sex?" Like, thinking it's social media, like, am I gonna get fit like like, is it gonna get censored, you know?
Okay,
Like,
is
is
that not perfectly on point, though,
it
for
is
the
perfectly
theme of
on
this? Oh
point.
my
It is,
god, yeah.
yes. So, we wanna talk more about sex and infertility and how infertility in general, but IVF treatments and everything that comes with that can impact your sex life and intimacy with your partner, also your libido, all of these different things. And we put a call out for listener stories because we thought this would be a great topic to start with stories from the community, shared anonymously, how it's impacted our listeners. Also, in the future, bring on some experts. Amy and I can talk about our experiences and just really kind of have this conversation that I don't think is happening in a lot of places. And we got two stories, which which I don't think is a reflection of our audience size. Maybe maybe we only have 2 listeners.
Yeah, no.
No, it's not a reflection of our audience size because we've done these listener story call outs in the past, and we get dozens and dozens of emails and recordings from listeners who wanna share about their infertility and IVF experiences. So my hunch is, and I could be wrong, but this is just my hunch, is that this is a really sensitive topic for people to talk about and kind of proves the point of what we want to talk about is that, it's hard. Talking about sex and intimacy is already taboo and can be difficult, specifically as it relates to women's pleasure. But then add in the element of infertility, which is also taboo, IVF, which can be controversial depending on what circles you're in. It's
Mhm.
just a lot. I think what we're going to do for today, for this episode that's coming out right before Valentine's Day, is we want to
On
spill
Galentine's Day.
on Valentine's Day.
Oh, we
That's
should have done a
right.
Galentine's Day episode. Ugh,
I
screw the
forgot about
sex
that.
one.
Yeah. Who
Whatever.
cares
Okay,
about our partners?
who cares about intimacy?
Doesn't
No,
matter.
no, no. Let's keep
Um,
on track, Amy. Can you
we
tell I don't wanna talk about this?
I know, right? Can we just cut?
Dodging.
Is the episode over yet?
Yeah. Do we have no content?
We we do. We're going to share the 2 stories from listeners because we're so grateful to them for their vulnerability and for sending those in. And then we are going to also read some stories from Reddit because that is a great trove of information when
I
people
love
want to
it.
be when people want to be anonymous. And then I think we'll maybe speak a little bit to our own experiences. I think it is
Mhm.
harder for you and I because it's not an anonymous setting, and also we know each other's like, we're all
Partners?
friends.
Yeah,
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 and
yeah.
so there is, like, a little
And
bit
your
of,
parents listen to this and, like
right, and so there is, like, a little bit of privacy that you wanna maintain. Well, let's just start with Reddit because I think that this is, like, a good place to kind of dip our toes
it's a
into the
gateway drug.
waters. I don't know if I would call I don't know if that's exactly what I would call it, but it is a great starting point.
No?
Sure, Amy, sure.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
So, also fun fact, Katie, like, we both grew up in, like, very religious families,
yes.
so this is a taboo topic.
Yeah,
True.
well, okay, before we jump into Reddit, this is something that I wanted to mention, I guess, because I do wanna talk about this more in depth later on, but one of the things that has been most challenging for us is because I was raised in purity culture, which for
Mm,
anyone who's unfamiliar, it is the abstinence movement of the 90s and early 2000s, where in the evangelical church, a lot of teenagers were promising to remain abstinent until marriage. And there was a lot of shame based teaching that came alongside of that as it related to sexuality and desire. And so both my husband
The
and I
female
grew up,
body.
the female body, yes, all of that. And so my
Mhm.
husband and I both grew up with those teachings and got married very, very young and struggled in the first few years of our marriage because of those teachings, because of the shame that we brought into our relationship surrounding sex and all of that. And so it's been interesting to now navigate the challenges that come with sex after infertility or after IVF paired with the foundation of the challenges with sex and purity culture. So it's kind of like it's tacked on to this already
Mm.
challenging aspect of our relationship. And I think maybe something that listeners can resonate with, and I'm curious, Amy, if you resonate with this, is that like physical intimacy seems to fall to the very bottom of the priority list when it comes to
Mm.
IVF. Like,
Mm.
I feel like it's something you have to be very conscious about it of like, am I going to invest in this? And because especially it's like when you're going through infertility, it's how much sex can I have during my fertile window?
Oh my
And
gosh.
and then once you're going through IVF, it's I don't even need to have sex anymore because somebody else
Right.
is getting me pregnant.
Right.
And do I even want
Or
to have
you're
sex
not
because
even
I'm
allowed
or
to,
you're not
or
even
you
allowed to.
can't. Or in my case, it was like, don't God forbid you get pregnant and have
Right.
another miscarriage and set back another 6 months and need more
Yeah.
surgery, and then not to mention, like, a lot of IVF, you actually can't do it. You're on
Right.
pelvic rest because of procedures or whatnot. So, yeah, it's a funny like,
It's
I don't wanna say funny, but, like, the pendulum. Like, you mentioned, like,
yeah.
have as much sex as possible
Mhm.
to, like, micromanaging even, like, when you do try to have intimacy. Oh my gosh, I can't right now. This is my mother's spirit, like, coming down and warning me, "Amy, this is an off the table topic. We don't talk about these things. Be a good Midwestern little girl, okay?" I swear, that's what that was.
So
I just felt her. I'm, like, so
her
anxious about it.
intervening.
I did, yep.
Yeah. Well, okay, but that's okay. We're gonna this is good. This is good teaser info. I don't wanna dive too much into this because we don't have 4 hours to debrief all of this, which I feel like, yeah, it's a huge conversation. So I think the tension yeah, I'm taking note of the tension that comes with having this conversation and what it's already bringing up for us. Um, okay, Reddit. So I do want to point out that when I put sex infertility in the Reddit search bar, this is
I
not
know.
related to what we're talking about specifically, like with the challenges. But there's a Reddit thread called "Too Afraid to Ask," which I
Oh,
love because you get to just ask whatever question and then people will answer it, and it's all anonymous, right? And one one of the questions is, and I love how they use the term "infertile people," like that is how we are coined. Um, do infertile people usually have sex with their partners without protection? What a great
okay, wait, can I s are we reading these or can I react?
no, you can react.
Okay, so one funny thing that I feel like I have heard countless times and that I feel like other people might laugh at or have heard as well is like, "Oh, well, at least you guys don't need to use protection.
Oh my gosh.
At least you don't have to be on birth control. Isn't that a drag? At least you don't need to use condoms. Isn't that a drag?" Sure, okay, alright, that's a good trade.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm so grateful to save all my money on
So grateful
condoms
I
and
won't have an unplanned pregnancy. My goodness.
yeah, no thanks. Okay, so where do we want to start? I mean, there's a thread called "What has infertility done to your sex life?" There's a thread
Oh.
called "The infertility is destroying our sex life."
Oh.
My sex life. Dot dot dot. Please tell me I'm not alone.
Mm.
Lost interest in sex ever since I found out we're infertile.
Aye.
Anyone else's sex life plummeting during IVF.
Yes.
There are a lot of threads here. Let's start with the IVF one. So, this person is looking for advice. I feel like I've gone from trying naturally where we never missed a cycle. Okay, this is exactly what we were just saying. Where I we never missed a cycle and still tried to keep things romantic to either being sore from an egg retrieval, worried about twins if I miraculously fertilize an embryo on a natural cycle frozen embryo transfer. Not like
Mm.
I've managed to have a natural pregnancy in 3.5 years, but now I'm suddenly thinking it's possible. Okay, I'm just gonna pause and say it is amazing to me how we all have the same thoughts, but we all think that we are the only ones having them.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, to not wanting to after an embryo transfer due to discomfort from progesterone suppositories, fears, or well, not being in the mood. And then period comes and I'm miserable for 5 days until the cycle starts all over again. Fortunately, marriage still going strong, but curious if I'm a freak case here.
Nope. You're in good company, babe.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's so relatable. The progesterone suppositories, like, no one wants to mess with that. So, I feel
No.
you, why you don't wanna try and have any intimacy during that time. Yeah, and then I feel like the big elephant in the room is, like, your ovulation window.
Hmm.
So and then you're just trying to have sex as much as possible in the ovulation window, or, like, I don't know. It's debatable if it's, like, as much as possible or you're being strategic about it. I've heard every other day, and then I had another doctor who was like, "Screw that, do it as much as you can," and, like, um,
Yeah.
but the fact of the matter is, like, it's tiring
It's
and
exhausting.
it's exhausting, and then, okay, you can decide, you could tell me to punt this to later if we wanna, like, draw this part out a little bit. But the other piece of this is how often I or the woman in the partnership, if it's a heterosexual relationship, I feel as though, or tell me if I'm the crazy one. I feel as though we're the ones who have to initiate most of the time, like all of the time in that particular in the ovulation window,
During
because
ovulation, right?
yeah,
Because you
like,
know
in the
when you're,
timing. Yeah.
well,
Because
that
we're
is one
tracking
thing.
it and all of that, and, like, we're so in tune, and I'm the one peeing on a strip and all of that. So I have a pro tip for that, but go ahead.
Well, I will shout out, I think it's Natural Cycles, and I think there are a couple of other apps too where you can actually invite your partner. And I would recommend this for all couples who are, I would just recommend it regardless. I think it's good for your partner to know where you're at in your cycle and for you to not have to be the one to always tell them like this is what's going on with
Mhm.
me hormonally, and the app will tell them when you're ovulating or so like
Yeah.
it keeps you on the same page, and so you
Have you
don't
done
always have to
that?
be the I
Did you
think I found
share it?
out about it. We did
Mm.
share it at one point, but I think it was like a couple years into our,
I have natural
journey.
cycles. I haven't shared it. Maybe I should. But you wanna know what I'm doing now?
What?
I'm just leaving the pee strip out, like, on the
I love
counter,
it. I've done that,
and
like a
I
little
just do that now.
breadcrumb.
'Cause
Yeah.
he knows what it is now. Because
Mhm.
I mean, I've probably peed on how many strips? 300 strips at least, like,
Way more.
way more.
Wait,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh, because because 'cause you're doing it several times. Yeah, no,
Right. Yeah.
3,000 strips, I don't know.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I've peed on a lot of strips, and so he knows what it is, we talk about it, like, he's in the loop, and maybe that's the first pro tip is, like, figure out how you can talk about it and, like, broach the
Mm.
conversation, start the education process. But secondly, so he knows about it, so I just leave it out, and now he has been better about understanding the timing portion,
Yeah.
and,
No,
like,
it's great. He can be more
yeah,
of a participant in taking initiative and so that that doesn't
yeah,
always fall on you because yeah, I think that is like especially like in the beginning stages when you're taking your temperature, you're monitoring your ovulation window,
mhm,
all of that falls on you. And so and it's not very like I don't know, maybe some people get turned on by being planners and having everything organized, but, like, sometimes it's helpful to have your partner initiate or be spontaneous about it so that it doesn't feel so planned and orchestrated
Clinical.
and clinical. So, okay,
Yeah.
one of the comments on this thread, which I think is I think a lot of us resonate with this. Back-to-back cycles meant we were forbidden from having sex for 2
Yes.
months. Yep. Then I had my HSG, hormone issues, despair. Mostly I started associating my vagina with suffering and medical procedures and not
Oh.
sex. So
Yep.
sex just seems scary and weird. Plus I've gained weight, so I don't want to be naked. So yeah, our sex life disintegrated. We're just waiting it out. And then someone responded this, "I feel like my vagina has had so many objects go into it lately. It definitely isn't sexy."
Hmm. Well, on the one hand, I hope this isn't controversial because I mean it in like a funny, cute way. The guys don't really care about what your if your vagina is sexy,
They
you know what I'm
don't.
saying? It doesn't matter actually. But if you
They're
don't feel sexy, that's
if
the
you don't,
problem. So
that's
let
what
me just put a
matters.
stake
Yeah.
in that claim,
Mm.
and that for sure I resonate with, particularly like hormonal or also like recovering from procedures for sure. And then I think there's also like some of that can feel like really violating as well
Mhm.
and like puts you in a
Totally.
bad mental position with your own body, and that area is so, sensitive, all of the above. So, it's really hard, and I think I was really anti big dry spell for a long time post, when I was in the major bout of surgeries, and, like, that was one of the things I ended up taking to therapy to talk about, making a decision to, like, pause on my own,
Mhm.
like, on all the procedures on my own body. It was one of, like, the lights at the end of that decision of, like, maybe I
Yeah.
can, like, get back to my body, however that looks now, years and trauma later. That's really true,
Mhm.
though. It's really hard.
It yeah.
Like, I
I
don't know
think
how to say it.
I think too, like, at least in my experience, I have struggled with breaking the thought patterns
Yeah.
surrounding sex because it's like, how do you go from years of every time you have sex, you're thinking, "Oh, maybe this is the time. I hope this is the time."
Mm.
Like, you're always thinking about that. Even when you're going through IVF, like the commenter who said, "Maybe I'll natural like, we're starting IVF, maybe this is the cycle we get pregnant, or we're doing IVF, maybe we spontaneously conceive twins," or,
Mhm.
even now, like, you and I have kind of started talking about being postpartum. Am I going to just, like, all of a sudden be that person that naturally conceives? Like,
Yeah.
I still haven't had a cycle. I haven't had a cycle since before we started trying where I'm not thinking about, am I going to get pregnant because of sex? And so I think
Mm.
that that is something that I do wanna explore in more detail, potentially with a sex therapist, because I think for those of us going through this, it becomes very, very difficult to reassociate sex with intimacy with your partner, with playfulness, with pleasure, when for so long the pattern has been sex is for creating a baby. Like, we are on a mission here. Like, this is what we are trying to do, you know? And even if you do
Yeah.
have pleasure in doing that, you're still thinking about the fact that I'm ovulating, I'm trying to get pregnant. And so how do you, like, remove the trying to get pregnant from the sex after it's
Mm.
been there for so long?
Yeah, how do you get back to, "This is just because we like each other and it's
Yeah.
pleasurable and we just wanna do it," versus it's very like a productive thing with an end
Mhm.
goal and it's like a success or failure. Yeah, I think that resonates with a lot of us. It's so difficult to, like, change the, like you said, the what did you call it? Like, the mentality of it and the
Mhm.
intention behind it. Well, if
Yeah.
I was Dr. Rachel, pelvic floor therapist, go check out her
Mm.
episode last year. Hopefully, we're gonna have her back on because she does a lot. She's like does a ton on pelvic floor therapy. So, like, one plug for that is like pain in that area is a really good signal that maybe you should see a pelvic floor therapist because pain shouldn't be normal. And pain comes along with a lot of things surrounding infertility, not just, the medical and procedural trauma that is going on, but also like endometriosis, PCOS potentially, right? Like adenomyosis, pain in the pelvic region could also be related to your infertility. So keeping that in mind. But the other thing that she would tout or that she would promote is like how to bring playfulness back and,
Yeah.
using toys or using other techniques to like have it be about pleasure and not just about the baby making and
Mhm.
not just like, did you finish? Are we done? But more like the actual enjoyment of being physically together intimately. So we'll have her back on to talk about that. And that's a plug for the newsletter where we're going to share some of her top recommendations and her discount code for
Yeah.
that stuff. If you want a little nudge to try something new.
Yeah, I would love to have her back on, and I'd love to keep this conversation going. I think there's just so much here, and I don't know. I feel for all of us because I think it is I think it's
Yeah.
so sad. I think
Yeah.
it's such a, there are so many things that we sacrifice going through this that we've talked about a lot with our bodies and our finances and our mental health and our timelines and all of these different things. But I think talking about like the toll that it takes on our relationships, both emotionally and physically,
Yeah.
is sometimes just not talked about as much because, it's like eyes on the prize. We've gotta
I
focus on
know.
getting to the end of this and yeah.
I think the other elephant in the room is that we are feeling a lot of this, right? But probably our partners are feeling something too. And like, I'll say from our own experience, well, sometimes it's like, I just don't want to be touched at all. Like, just like I'm not in a good spot. So if that becomes the norm, you can kind of understand why it would be hard to then like break that norm.
Mhm.
And so just give an empathy for the partners in the room too, who don't always have it that easy either, or it's not that straightforward on how to approach it either. So communication is really important there, and I don't think one we're not really taught to talk about sex outside of like if you were lucky health, like you had a health class about it
Mhm.
once when you were 15, but we're not really taught to talk about it. We're not really taught to talk about pleasure and I think that communicating through these kinds of things is something like we all probably have to, a lot of us probably have to practice. And it's like really uncomfortable. Like you don't know how to bring it up. Uh, yeah.
I think that's a really great call out. I remember we had a comment on social media once and it was like it was playful but it was, and all of the women jumped in and they were like, "Oh, like we feel so bad for you," because it was something. I think it was the one where we posted all of the things that we do when going through IVF and then it was like a clip of our partner's contribution and it was like the Playboy magazines or something and you know, somebody commented and it was a little a man commented and it was a little spicy, about how, like, it is hard going into the room and having to give your sample, and it can be uncomfortable, and,
Yeah.
we're all like, "Okay, like, cry me a river," but to be fair, I think you are right. That isn't to be discounted. In our relationship, like, that was often challenging. There is a performance part that our, partners have to play. So,
Mm,
whether that be in the IVF clinic or during your ovulation window, like, for us, it's like, "Okay, come on, game time. It's time to go." Like, I'm ovulating, but, like, that's also a lot of pressure on them
hmm
perform.
Perform.
What can I say?
Do
Yeah.
your one job. It's a very
Yes,
important job.
do your one job. It's a very
Yeah.
important job, but sometimes, like, men, they can get in their heads and it can be
Hmm.
difficult, and especially if you're not in the mood or you don't want to or like I think the other thing that, we can talk about this in the future as well. If you work different schedules or it's like you have a
Yeah.
very short window where it's not like, okay, we could just do this later today or we could do this tomorrow, but it's like, no, like this is the one time during this window where we have to get it done. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I actually was thinking
So,
about you guys in that regard with Anthony going to the fire
so
station
yeah,
last year, 2 years ago when
when
he
he
first
was
started.
right because he was in a fire academy and it was too much of a commute, and so he rented an apartment with a couple of the guys that he was with, and they went and lived there for, like, 4 or 5 days a week, and then he would come home on the weekends.
Right. And I was always
That's
curious. I'm like, is he missing her ovulation window? I was like,
Amy's like, "What are they
what?
doing?"
No.
Um,
Well, I feel like I didn't did I feel like we must have talked about it because I guess I let go
we
of
must
that
have.
angst. I was like so worried for you.
I will have to ask him because I don't have any memories of maybe
Maybe.
one time I went down there to have sex, like, maybe there was one time that I was like, "Hey, I'm ovulating tonight." But I feel like for some reason, it always worked out where or maybe we
Oh,
were just, like, at the end of the tunnel. I was just
yeah.
like, we're so discouraged, so it was just like,
Maybe you
"Whatever."
were doing retrievals during that
Yeah,
time.
we might have been doing retrievals or prep for retrievals.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, similarly, like, if Mima had a I think that something recently happened where he had a trip, and it was, like, during a window, and I was so annoyed. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
"What? What do you mean?"
It's because they're precious, precious
They're
windows,
precious, not
especially if
that
you have a long cycle too. Like, if you think
oh, I
like,
don't. I
my
have a short
cycle is
cycle.
only same, mine's like 27, 28 days, but
Mm,
for people who their cycles are 30 plus days, like,
yeah.
missing one ovulation window
Mhm.
can be a
Mhm.
huge deal.
Yeah. And on that topic, what we were talking about, like, yeah, they have to perform, right, in the moment. And, it's it's annoying or it's can be difficult, at least I've found it to be difficult to always be the one that has to, like, initiate and remind us that we
Mhm.
have to do this. So it's helpful that, they're along the journey with us, but even alongside that is, like, intimacy in general. If we're trying to build intimacy outside of just baby making, we're trying to
Yeah.
get back to that. I think, like, they also don't know how to, like, approach it if we're constantly, like, shut down or we're constantly, like, only in productivity mode, if you will, and that can I think can also be, like, a hard thing to straddle or pun intended, but no, but you know what I
And
mean.
yeah.
But it can be a hard thing to
Yes.
broach, like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I feel like some pro tips I've seen from friends who've gone through this. One of my friends, like, tried to take the pressure of that, like, sex itself off the table and trying to get back to, like, what made them enjoy each other in the first place, and, like, for them, it was dancing. They love to go to live music and dance and, like, groove, and so they
Mm,
put a little bit more investment in that, and it didn't end up the nights might not have ended up with sex at the end, but it was like, "Oh, we like each other and we like being
yeah.
physical and playful on the dance floor," and it was, like, kind of reinvigorating, and I think that's a really great example of sort of a lower lift thing that's like, you can keep all your clothes on. You can be anonymous in this dark room, dance club. You don't have to, like, go straight to just sex or bust. Like, it's gonna be 10 out of 10 intimate sex or nothing and we suck, or, it
Yeah.
can also
Yeah.
be like, why do we like each other? What makes us, like, giggle and what makes us be physically playful? Another one, that I learned from a friend recently is they like to work out together, which I
I
was
like
like,
that.
"That's
Yeah.
really cute." Like, they like to go to their
Mhm.
little berries class and
Cute.
do their little hit training and, like, slap a little tap on the butt, and it,
Mhm.
like, gets them, moving
All of those
next to each
endorphins.
other,
Yeah.
but not only like eyes on each other. And then another friend told me about uh, how, they have a newborn and, well, I guess he's not a newborn anymore. I don't know. When did they stop being a newborn? I don't know anything about
After
babies. Just kidding.
ooh, I have one and I don't know anything. I like
Okay, well, it's not
6
brand
months?
new, not brand
Yeah.
new, but like
Okay.
newish,
A baby.
six-ish, whatever. And a baby. They have a baby, and they decided that they were going to do like little one night dates, like like a little overnight, but local. And it was like
Mhm.
they have somebody they really trust with their kid, um, as an overnight or like a family member, and they're pretty close, and they'll just like pop on over to like this next town that's like cute and a little different, and it feels like they're going away on a big thing, but it's just like
Mhm.
the barrier to entry is really small. It's like within an hour. They can get home very quickly if something happens, and they can like have a little adventurousness
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
their relationship again, which I really liked that one. Because I think a lot of us feel like to do something out of our comfort zone, it has to be like this big thing, but it can actually like be very small and still be like that little magical spark that reminds you of like when you first started dating or when you first started to like go on trips together.
Have we talked
Cute.
about I feel like I don't know if I told you this or if I had it in a different conversation, but one of the things that I found to be helpful was having sex somewhere that is not your bed. Like the
No.
place that you have sex most often while trying to get pregnant, like, switch it up, like, try to
Mm,
do it somewhere else. So, even if it's just, like, on the floor or, like, just a different
yeah.
location because, I don't know, I feel like without being too graphic, there are very similar positions one
Yeah. Yep.
will get into when it's
Missionary.
very, very yeah, how quickly, how yes,
Yeah.
just
Yep.
very routine
Well,
feeling
gravity,
and
right?
yes, legs up.
Legs up the wall.
Okay, this is great. I think that this is a really good start to this conversation. I hope that this episode is just an offering of solidarity to people, especially going into Valentine's Day, who might be feeling overwhelmed or discouraged or like their lives just look very different with
Mhm.
their partners and that they don't really want to celebrate or they don't know how to celebrate or God forbid or maybe it's a good thing you're ovulating on Valentine's Day this year and there's
Oh,
additional pressure.
oh my
Just
god.
I hope that you please hear us in knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah.
There are many, many Reddit threads that you can turn to for similar stories if you are feeling like there's no one else that is having your experience, because I promise you someone is. And we hope to keep having this conversation and to bring on some experts because obviously we can just sit here and talk about how awful and terrible it is, but it'd be nice to get some like practical tips for
Yeah. Yeah,
how
for
do
sure.
we
How do we make this better?
you're an expert yourself. Please reach out. Give us
Yes.
advice. We wanna have good sex again. Please.
Okay. Great. Well, this was fun. I'm,
This was
like, kind of
fun.
nervous still, but this was fun. Yeah.
No, this is good. We will play the listener stories now for you all, and yeah, we wish you a happy Valentine's Day, however you choose to celebrate or don't celebrate, whatever you'd like. We will have a newsletter going out, with some of our Amy and I are, like, very conscious about recommending products and not wanting to like feed into consumerism. And so everything that we recommend is like tried and true. It actually is saving our sanity and our lives.
We
And
like them.
we like them and we share them with each other and we use them and we make all of our friends buy them. And so we're putting together a little roundup for Valentine's Day of just like self care things that are truly, truly worth the investment. Um, and I think I shared this in the Platonic Love newsletter, but like I just view it as part of the IVF
I loved that.
investment, where it's like if
Yeah.
I'm paying $30,000 or whatever for this treatment, I'm going to allocate, like, an additional $500 to get myself coffees, to
You're so
buy
good at
myself a new
that.
book.
You're
Like,
so good at that, like, you just, like, f it's a line item. You just
it's a
factor it
line
in.
item.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like it's like the credit card processing fee.
Exactly. Just add it, just
They
make it
get
part
to
of
take
the process. Yeah.
$100, you get to buy 100 coffees, you know?
Yes. Yes. So, anyway, so we're putting together a newsletter. We'll send it out and check it out.
Yeah, and happy
And
Valentine's Day.
happy Valentine's
And
Day.
happy Galentine's Day, because we would be
The
nowhere
more important
without
one.
our girlfriends, which
It's so true.
actually, seriously, where we would be nothing without them. And I don't yeah, they're the most important. Don't tell Nima.
All right. Well,
Okay. I love
you're
you.
doing great. Love
You're doing
you.
great.
Bye.
Hi, I am recording this in the car, so I hope it's not too terrible in terms of background, etc. My name is Emma, and I wanted to share my story. So, my husband Corey and I met 3 years ago, and we had a whirlwind of a romance. We were both in our mid to late 30s, and so we knew almost immediately that this was a different experience compared to other dating experiences that we'd had, and it was special and beautiful. And so we very quickly jumped in with both feet and moved in with each other. And I think it was probably about 6 months in that I let him know that because I was at that point 35, I did want to start trying to have a child, that it was very important to me that I have children. And because I have a history of endometriosis, which was diagnosed at 24, and I have a history of laparoscopies, that I knew it was going to be a little bit more difficult potentially for us to conceive. And he was fine with me getting rid of my birth control and starting that process. And so we started then. It was in about November that we realized that maybe we might need a little bit more help. We spoke to some family friends who had had an HSG, and that's around the time when things sort of got a little kerflooey with intimacy. I would say, though, I think we were in a really good place at that point. It was right after the HSG that I did get pregnant. I think we were at 8 weeks when we went in to see the heartbeat in New York City. We were actually home for the holidays. We made the decision to get married at that point because we had been engaged. We thought we would, just do it while we were there with my parents. My dad was a little bit older. And so we got married the day that we saw the ultrasound. Unfortunately, on the ultrasound, the heartbeat was only 67, which is not a good rate. They let me know that I would begin miscarrying soon. And that was a really painful drive back to Texas. We had another ultrasound done once we were in Texas and Austin, and it was shown that there was no heartbeat. I then had to take meds that were shipped to me from New York because the doctor in Texas said there was no way that he could procure the pill for me. I was either going to wait for the miscarriage to happen or have a D&C, which with my insurance would have cost almost $5,000. So I think, had about 6 to 7 months after that of trying. Actually, I miscarried for 5 weeks straight, which was extremely painful and difficult. And I ended up having to have an ultrasound weeks later once we came back to New York to see what was going on. Was actively miscarrying at my best friend's wedding. Finally, by about March, I was through the miscarriage, and we started trying again. But it was lackluster, right? It was ovulation strips and temperatures, and everything was all about timing, and it became very scientific. And then in September, we made the decision to go to a fertility clinic. We started pretty much right after that, maybe a month or two after that, with my cycle and starting to look towards a retrieval. And I know you guys know this more than anything, but once you're in the IVF land, it's there's a lot of, you can't have sex. So there's a lot of withholding, not withholding, but you're not allowed to have sex until this point, or at this point you can again. After retrieval, you can't have any. You have to be on pelvic rest for 2 weeks, and then there's also no exercising. So I got to a point where I felt like I was not myself again anymore. I had gained weight after the miscarriage due to depression and dealing with that, and it only got worse with IVF, with the hormones, and then with the this just constantly being told I couldn't exercise. And then of course you want to eat everything in sight, right? But yeah, we went through one retrieval, we got nothing, which was heartbreaking. It wasn't until January we were able to try again with an IUI, which failed. We then did another round of IVF in April, which unfortunately we did 2 months after my dad passed away accidentally, in an accident, I should say. And that was a really difficult process. Again, between the miscarriage of losing my father and IVF, I think unfortunately we've just been in a bit of a holding pattern in terms of our romantic life. And I think my husband would tell you that, it's just one of those things where I look at him and he looks at me, and we say to each other, we can do hard things. We have been through the ringer. We did another retrieval in July after a failed transfer of one embryo that we got from the other retrieval. That broke my heart as well. And so in July, we got one more embryo and PGT tested it, and it was normal. And spent the entire fall, this past fall, basically going through, I had a hysteroscopy, so I had to be in pelvic rest after that. Then that failed, and they wanted me to have another one, and so I had another hysteroscopy. How can it fail, you ask? Oh, God, that's a longer story. And then was on pelvic rest again. And so, it's just, and one of the things Katie said recently, I think resonated with me, that this idea that even when you do get pregnant, you have been in this process of hormones and, scientifically tracking things and pelvic rest and, prenatals. I've been on prenatals for 2.5 years straight at this point. That even when you do get pregnant, there's sort of like, it's not as happy as it should be in terms of just finding out. And that is really hard, right? It feels like we get robbed of that announcement. There's not this joyous thing. And even after pregnancy, right, there's this concern of like, well, wait until the heartbeat, wait until the viability scan. I want to make sure that, God forbid, there's a chorionic hematoma, that I don't want to mess with the fetus or the pregnancy. So it's tough. This has gone on far too long, so I'm gonna let it go here. But thank you guys for sharing these stories. I think there's so many of us that are going through this and that are just doing our best. I always say, like, if you could make time for a date night once a week, that's what Corey and I try to do. We make time for dates, and we make time for things that aren't sex. Honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I used to love making out with my partner when we were first together and we didn't have to have sex. There's no reason why that can't be fun anymore. It doesn't have to be a full situation. So that's my story. I hope that's helpful. Again, apologies, that's a little long, and thank you, ladies.
Hi, okay, so talking about my IVF and fertility experience and intimacy. So I had 2 miscarriages in 2025. Our first one was the first time we tried getting pregnant. We got pregnant, had an early miscarriage, and that kind of started some problems with intimacy because I was going through the grief of all of that, and then just nervous because I'm okay, well, we can get pregnant really easy, and I'm not sure I'm ready yet. So now I'm kind of back in high school associating any look in the direction of a man will get you pregnant. So it took us a while to get back to normal intimacy. And then when we tried again, 9 months later, when I was feeling better after that loss, or as good as you can be and ready to move forward, again got pregnant on the first try, which very fortunate. But then again had a miscarriage. So that kind of reiterated feeling of okay, a look equals a touch equals sex equals pregnancy equals loss. And so having to kind of separate those feelings and knowing that that's not a true, pattern or timeline of how that happens. Sex clearly does not always equal pregnancy, and pregnancy does not always equal loss. But those are my only experiences. So that's kind of how my brain framed it. And then a couple weeks later, we had genetic carrier screening done as part of our recurrent pregnancy loss evaluation. And we did find out that we're both carriers for the same genetic disease. Turned out that was completely unrelated to the losses that we had. So now it's just this extra information. So no answers to what happened. But now we're on the path to doing IVF with PGTM testing. And we're in the long waiting process of the genetic lab making the probe to test our future embryos with. But so now intimacy is, part of that kind of cycle that I was explaining before of like touch equals sex equals pregnancy equals loss. But now it's like, okay, even if pregnancy doesn't equal loss now, if we actually have a successful pregnancy from sex, then, there's a chance of having an affected kid with this genetic disorder. So it just kind of feels like just way too heavy. And so having difficulty with that. Like, obviously there's condoms and everything, but also just kind of going through the grief of like the carefree sex that we used to be able to have of like, oh, if it happens, it happens, or like, oh, we're gonna commit to trying now, of having to be like really vigilant at preventing pregnancy to avoid passing down a genetic condition to our future kids. But my partner, thought of this himself, which I was really touched by. But he said, once we eventually have all of the embryos that we need to bank for our future family, he said that he would get a vasectomy. That way it kind of takes off that fear and like that need to be so vigilant. So I really appreciated that. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we're going through.